My name is Matt Brady. I'm the general manager here at Ag Performance, and I apologize. Our video's off. There's kind of a glitch, but I hope to see and meet all of you at some point. We hope this next hour 15, we've kind of been averaging is informative, whether it's your first time or just getting further info on all this. Let me go ahead here. Brief agenda. Welcome. Couple points about AP in general. Not sure how much everybody knows about us as a company, where we're headed, and then we'll get to the big three products, and then kind of a little wrap up on how you and your teams can stay connected to us as efficiently as possible. Quick bit of housekeeping. If you see down the bottom, the chat button there, if you want to hit that, you can, that's how we'll have everybody throw questions in and I'll watch it. And I've got Dan Yagi here, the owner of Ag Performance here, and I've got Mick Johnston here, the president, owner, and everything of AgriDNA, here with me as well. They will both be speaking, so we can see your questions as they come up with the chat, and we'll address those as they pop up when they do show up. With that, brief 101 who we are. We got me and our lean staff there. I will note to you folks that third one from the bottom, Amanda, just started just under 2 weeks ago. She keeps coming back, so that's a good thing. So if you get her when you call in, just introduce yourself, and you'll be hearing from her. She replaced Sheila, if you were ever working with Sheila in our department. So quick AP, kind of a financial beginning has turned into seed, chemical, and specialty while still maintaining the financial end. It's long story short, if we don't make your customers more money or you more money, we don't need to be there. We're not providing value. So service, net return, and high quality products is what we're all about. With that, let's jump into the meat and potatoes of what we're all here for with Xylem Plus. And for that, I'm going to throw it over to Mick.
Yeah, good morning. Mick Johnston from Boone, Iowa with AgriDNA. We work with Ag Performance on the Xylem Plus brand fungicide. So we'll get started on the product and really what it brings to the table for us. Xylem Plus is a systemic fungicide. Works very well in the plant up to 60 days. So it is a unique registered fungicide as a phosphite that can work both foliarly as well as in furrow when we make those applications. With the next slide. The one thing that makes the phosphite very unique is how it's manufactured. So it is a potassium phosphite. And with the manufacturing process, as well as the patents that hold it together, we put these phosphites together in a molecular chain. So this allows us to have that residual in the plant and soil compared to other phosphites that are individual phosphites, and those can last weeks, days, maybe up to 30 days tops, but very, very low response to those when they're sitting in the soil or in the plant, because they oxidize down to a phosphate, and then they're absorbed by the plant and they lose their control as a fungicide. So how does it work in the plant? This gets a little nerdy, but I tend to get a little nerdy on things. So when we look at how it works in the plant, typically when a disease gets in, and this would be an example of a phytophthora disease that would get into the plant, it would get into the cells of the plant through the xylem and phloem. It would move into the cells and attack those cells and break them down. The plant would have very little protection at that time. When a phosphite is present, and this will move in the plant readily from the tassel to the root, regardless of where the application is at, the phosphite is directly fungistatic. So it will attack it'll attack the phytophthora and it will kill it. Also, it will send some signaling to the plant cell that it needs to protect itself, that there are diseases present in the plant. So it will then transpose into the nucleus, and then the plant will strengthen its cell walls until neighboring cell walls do the same thing. And we get some what's called polysaccharides, which are basically the pieces of the cell that protect it from diseases to get in. So it's really a twofold disease protection. Number one would be direct protection against disease in the plant, and number two would be signaling to that plant that there's disease around, and it will create some natural disease control as well. Again, this is a systemic product, so whether you do a foliar application or an in-furrow application, these will move into the plant. The phosphite will readily get into the plant and move. The potassium that's carrying the product and creating part of the patented process that creates the string of phosphites will carry it into the plant. And while it's carrying it into the plant, it will move to new tissue growth as well as a old tissue area and have a full plant protection. These products are very, very safe. As tank mix partners, they're long lasting in the plant, and they also create the opportunity for the plant to have healthier roots and stalks. So the diseases, regardless of the time frame that we're in, whether it's dry spring or wet spring, cool spring or warm spring, there's a lot of diseases that I call them the hidden diseases that take yield away from us. Whether it's in the root and the seed area, planting with Fusarium and Rhizoctonia and Pythium, and other diseases at that time, whether it's in that early foliar time frame with Gauss's wilt, common rust, with Gauss's wilt, common rust, and Stewart's wilt, and anthracnose, leaf blight. Those are ones that can get into the plant and cause problems. And then those late season ones with Fusarium and anthracnose and others that can get into the plant. So Xylem Plus is both fungistatic as well as bacterial. So it will protect those bacterial diseases that get into the plant as well as the fungal diseases. In soybeans, much the same way. The earlier diseases in the soybeans, I believe, are probably the most predominant challenges that we get with the Fusarium Pythium and those diseases that can cause sudden death later in the growing season. In that mid time frame, when we have white mold that can come in, getting that plant covered at that first bloom or just before first bloom, also the bacterial diseases and the stem and stalk diseases in the bean. And then late season with sudden death that can come on, phytophthora, white mold, and brown stem rot and cankers. Those diseases that really take yield away from us and pull our early podding and early pod fill away from us and leave them on the ground. So it's very important, regardless of the time frame, to have that plant inoculated with Xylem. Applications. In corn, we would recommend 32 ounces in furrow and then come back at that VT to R2 time frame with 24 ounces. If in furrow is not an option for you or for your growers, then we would recommend that post herbicide application with 32 ounces and then come back at that same VT to R2 time frame with 24 ounces. On soybeans, very similar to the corn, if you're going in furrow, 32 ounces to inoculate that plant early and then come back at that R1 early flower time frame with the 24. And then if you're doing the post application, the 24 ounces at your early flower, basically when you're doing the post application, and then come back at that 2 weeks later with that second application. Now, with white mold, if that's an issue in that B option, make sure that you get that 24 ounces on right at or before first bloom, and then that 2 weeks later. If you're not concerned about white mold and that's not a concern, then you could go with your post herbicide, which of course would be much earlier than that first bloom with the 24 ounces, and then come back at that R1 pod set bloom time frame when you traditionally do a fungicide. Tank mixing and mixing, we would recommend that you get half of your volume of your products in that mix before adding Xylem, and then agitate fully. and continue to agitate that while you're finishing your mix into the tank. So if there's some products you haven't worked with before, we recommend jar testing those products to make sure that we have compatibility with those. And if you have questions, feel free to call the office. We're trying to keep track of products that we've had good luck with, or if there are some that we're challenged with. And finally here, making sure that we don't let this product freeze. So it's not that it will lose its efficacy or that it will break down, but it will form crystals and start to crystallize in the tank if it freezes. So keeping it above freezing is important when you're storing it on the farm or in your warehouse. This is some data from 2022 where we were in a trial with multiple fungicides. And as you can see, both our 32 ounce alone at B3 and our 32 ounce at B3 and 24 ounces at R2 performed very well in comparison to just traditional fungicides. Now in this data, those traditional fungicides aren't covering the same things that we are. They're covering those leaf diseases much more so than we are. We have some control on those things, but predominantly we're stalk and stem diseases. But in light of some of those diseases being present, keeping that stalk clean and the root healthy allowed us to drive the plant to higher yields and return where many of the traditional fungicides did not.
Same thing, gross return.
Oh yeah, look at the gross return per acre. Again, very much matches the yield, but positive returns per acre with the cost of the product. This is some other trials that we did when we were looking at timing and placement, looking at placement in furrow versus V3, knowing that some people have in furrow capabilities, some people don't. Very positive returns. We averaged 13 bushel on our in furrow application and 14.9 on our foliar application. When we tag team that with 16 ounces at R1, we ended up with 13.9 on our foliar application and our post foliar, and 10.5 average on in furrow plus foliar application. 2023 data, yeah, we just got this in not terribly long ago, trying to get it out to everybody. This is a 32 ounces at that B3, B6 is what they have written down in there. It was actually applied to B3, B4. Looking at our yield increase of 11.3 with just singular application, 16.3 with a dual application of 32 and 16 ounces, and 12.5 with our 32 ounces foliar, as well as the 24 ounces late. Again, another solid year for Xylem testing at Iowa State. Our in furrow was 248 versus 231. When we added the 16 ounces, it went to 253.7. And when we went to the 24 ounces, it went to 256.7. So in this trial, we did have positive return for the increased application rate later. I know we get a lot of questions about where should we put it, what field should we put it on, what rates should we do it at. You know, if we had a crystal ball and we knew when the disease was going to come on, early or late, we could maybe not have an early application. But the fact that our years are very variable and we never really know what they're going to do from year to year, we want to keep that plant inoculated. So that's why our recommendations are the 32 ounce in furrow and the 24 ounce late. Another trial looking at the foliar application, 273 versus 262. When we added 16 ounces, it went to 278. And with our 24 ounce application, it went to 274. Still a good return over the check. And again, every place is different, even in a trial. We did a bean trial and I was hoping to have some good data from it, but unfortunately, Bambi got into the plots and pretty much destroyed all the plots. So we didn't have any data to share with you from Iowa State on beans this year.
One thing that was unique with the Iowa State data, this is Dan. You take last year's data, correct me, Mick, we saw a bigger return on the later application at tasseling and brown silk. Where this year, if you looked at the data was better at the in-furrow or early post-emergence. We saw a bigger boost. And what Mick is saying is, you can't guess where we're gonna have more humidity, moisture, or just more disease pressure. That's why we want this product used twice, because of 60-day control. And you can't get everybody to do that, but it's a guessing game of when we're gonna protect. One shot, no matter if it's done really early or at tasseling time, is still better than nothing at all, because we can stop that fusarium in the corn plants, especially if I'm talking corn. On that side of it, it's just gonna be in there. That's one thing I want to tell you guys too, is try to at least get the guy convinced to put it on twice. It's different than other fungicides, and remember, we're working inside that stalk. They're not. They're working on the leaves. We're working on the stalk and the leaves and the root. That's how you explain the difference when you're out selling this product. It is just way different than what's in the marketplace.
Yeah, the other side of that is we're really looking at standability and plant health and acquisition of nutrition. So especially in a dry year, if in a dry finish, if you have any disease in that stalk, you're going to limit the amount of water that can get in. But water is the carrier for those nutrients that are in the soil to get in as well, whether it's nitrogen or potassium or sulfur. And there's a lot of draw for that nutrition late in the season. So I agree with Dan, but the two pass application is recommended. The later application can be a little more of a crapshoot, depending on whether disease is there and how much damage has been done early season. So we would recommend that you take this to your customer base with a 2-pass program.
Going to the bean side just real quick, I want to Mick did a beautiful job. White mold, if that's an issue, guys, I'm going to say this firmly. It's got to be right at early flower or right before flower, when you're probably doing your E3 last spraying for your list. Then 2 weeks later, not 4, 2. We've seen almost 100% effectiveness at that timing. But if we get 4 weeks out, we've seen 80 to 90% effectiveness. I'm telling you that timing is huge if we're targeting white mold. And as dealers, what we're going to do is make sure we got our clients on a text so we can remind them so they get out there at those timing. But it's very, very crucial on white mold more than any other disease for timing. Otherwise, the rest is like 60 days out, you're protected. Correct?
Yeah, I would say the efficacy goes down to 50% or less if you don't get that first application at or before first bloom. Because the white mold gets into the plant and through that bloom. So if you get a bunch of blooms on and white mold gets in and you make that application afterwards, some of that damage is already done. So our effectiveness and our return will go down substantially. We saw this in Nebraska this last year, and it just dramatically reduced the efficacy of the product because they didn't get it on late in time and manner. I'll be fair with it. Most of them, it was a severe drought. I mean, they were looking at total crop failure, so they waited. But and then they ended up getting some rain, and white mold came in, and they got a double whammy. The guys who followed the recommendation had great responses. The guys who did not.
The reason I bought this product and why I first looked at it was fusarium and stalk rot. There's really nothing out there controlling that. And in certain years, we had a wetter, more humidity, late season, you get to late October, November, corn started going down with certain hybrids. This tremendously helps that. Not only that, but we take tissue samples in early to mid-August. Everything was going negative on the tissue samples. If you split that plant apart, down at the crown root, it was starting to close the plant down for nutrients. This is a big, big thing what this product does where other products don't. You'll keep the nutrient flow all the way to black layer, and that's where you gain your test weight and yield with this product, plus all the other diseases it handles too on top of it. If Paul, you had a comment, we need more wheat, Charles, you're exactly right. We don't have a lot on the wheat, but I know we're gonna do some. I was with a guy last week that Darren out in your area by Woonsocket that is considering 7,000-8,000 acres of wheat, putting it on. And I said, you know, we don't have the trials, but here's the diseases. These are the diseases that wheat has. I don't understand why we can't handle them with those disease problems you have.
Yeah, so this is some literature that Ag Firmness has put together for you. Feel free to call the office or get on the portal, that'd be fair, to get the information.
You know, we have kind of trifold little rat cards, and then we have bifold, kind of more of a full page sheet that we just had done. So whatever works best for you and your customers. Again, kind of like Paul did, if you have questions, throw in meeting chat and we'll try and get them answered. With that, back to Mick.
Okay, EnerG Plus. EnerG Plus is a enzymatic product. It also has kelp seaweed extract in it. The combination of those two will increase nutrient availability. It'll mitigate stress in the plant as well as in the soil when we're looking at variations in temperature and moisture in the soil. It'll increase microbial activity up to 1,000% within the first 24 hours. And in turn, it will enhance germination, create more rapid growth and emergence. And through that, by feeding those microbes, it triggers the natural plant defense and health. And that will create overall yield benefit. With glyphosate, it works very well with glyphosate because there are some nutrient tie-ups that happen with that, as well as some disease enabling factors that happen when glyphosate is applied to a soybean plant. So if you are putting glyphosate down, make sure you have your 24 ounces of EnerG Plus. Some of the data, you know, when we look at what's happening with the product and then the response from it is happening because we get an increase in microbial activity. There's also an increase in the richness and diversity of the microbes in the soil. It'll increase soil structure, nutrient plant availability, develops those healthier plants, and feeds the microbes so they can support the plant at the same time. So we're really working in what I call a symbiotic relationship with the soil. If we create a healthier soil, we'll create a healthier plant, and a healthier plant will create a healthier soil. So putting those together in a program supports better plant health and better response. So some of the yields that we've seen with 2 applications of 24 ounces with EnerG would be 16 bushel on corn, which generally is around a $60 return on investment. And 2 applications on beans at $13, 7 bushel, which would be 73. Great responses on corn and soybeans when we put this in the program. And on alfalfa, we use it on our farm and get a great response. We usually get a couple ton per acre, and the research that we're quoting here was 2.5 ton increase. So we make that application just at green up time frame and really help that plant and that root, which is very important with alfalfa because your crown is your king, and you're really driving that next cuttings tillers every time you make an application. So in this world that we live in, biologicals are rabid. They're just all over the place. When I started in the early 90s, we were a bunch of kooks out here, and now everybody who has a shingle that they hang, they have a biological that they're either looking at or the biological that they're using. So this is just a little breakdown on really the biological space. So prebiotics, which would be enzymatic products, which are derived from live microbes and plant extracts, but they contain no live microorganisms. Like EnerG Plus is a prebiotic, so it'll contain enzymes and amino acids and some of those simple and complex carbohydrates that are derived from that growth of those 30 microbes and then fermentation of them. Probiotics like NutriFoliar that we'll talk about after this, they're formulated containing single or multiple strains of microbes or spores, and they're selected for specific purposes in the plant and in soil. And the most important part is make sure that there's a concentration and a count on the label before you look at those. But the biggest reason for this slide up here, number one, is to give you an understanding of the space. But number two is, I believe a good probiotic works substantially better with a prebiotic. Because those prebiotics are food for the microbes or for the spores, when we can create a stable and safe food source for those and put them together, then when they're co-packed together in the application, then we're going to get a more consistent and viable response out of the probiotic that you put with it. So with that, I would not recommend using NutriFoliar without having EnerG with it, just to make sure that we're giving that product every opportunity to perform at the level that it's manufactured to.
I've used this product for 15 years on our farm, and up to like 2-3 years, I tested about everything in the marketplace against it. Honestly, I never see anything as consistent as this, and to me, this product works the best. Every time you make a pass, put it on. 16 ounces, or if you make only 2, 24, but the more you put it on and space it out every month and a half, you are exploding your microbial life and your deteriorating stocks, getting rid of your fertilizer, it's breaking it down. Basically, what they excrete out is what's available to the plant. There is no question, we've seen on tissue samples, if we can put it on 2-3 times, our tissue samples are higher where we put this than where we don't.
So application locations, you know, the leaf surface is a very good application area. So that's an above ground portion of the plant. It's going to increase photosynthetic efficiency. It's going to increase disease suppression because you're going to increase plant health. And it will translocate into the plant as well and serve as a food source for the root, as well as the nutrients in that root area. When we increase that plant health, it'll increase the exudation in that area. The other important area would be the bulk soil. And with bulk soil application, we can increase the nutrients that you've applied on those soils. So we spend a lot of money to add nutrition to our soil to get our soil test levels where we want to be. By applying EnerG Plus in that soil environment, we're going to increase the nutrient availability to the plant and increase the soil tilth and the soil health. Reduce salts, reduce magnesium, and increase our raw nutrients availability to the plant. Third would be these triggering pathways, and these are very important. They're, again, a little nerdy because this is a place I like to reside. But there are these chemical relationships in the plant, especially during the vegetative early time frame and the reproductive time frame. And by feeding the plant with these plant exudates, as well as the microbial exudates in the EnerG Plus, we can manage metabolism in the plant, manage the energy that's used, that will help increase our ear fill, our kernel numbers, our stalk health and stalk diameter, our leaf diameter, and that's all done through these triggering pathways. And last would be that in-furrow application. And that in-furrow application and that root zone feeds these rhizobacteria, and the rhizobacteria are basically a family of bacteria that reside right at the root tip as it's growing. And that same rhizobacteria is what glyphosate tends to break down. So by including EnerG Plus in your in-furrow application or an early foliar, you're going to feed that rhizobacteria, making more nutrients available, creating a healthier root system, deterring that sudden death that can get into the plant early, and managing that plant for the best opportunity to reach genetic potential. Application timings, if you're doing 1 or 2 applications, 24 ounces would be recommended. If you're doing 3 applications, 16. Again, as Dan shared a little bit ago, frequency is more important than rate. We're really looking at trying to continue to drive. We talked about increasing microbial activity by 1,000%. That increase will hold itself for 24 to 28 days. So if we can get another application in there, then we can build on that microbial activity and continue to drive it higher and higher. That's the same thing in soybeans. Your 2 application recommendations would be at 24 and your 3 would be at 16. And alfalfa would be 16 in each cutting. Now, on our farm, we make 3 24-ounce applications. We put it in furrow, we put it on with our post herbicide, and then we put it on with our fungicide applications. So we're doing 3 applications on our corn and soybeans, and our yields just continue to climb. Our soil health gets better. Our plant stock health and state green is better than our neighbors.
Well, when I visit your farms, I've been there 2-3 different times. There is no question mixed fields are way greener, and I'm colorblind and I can see the green, are way greener than the neighbors, if anything, or healthier looking, let's put it that way. I rode your combine with you, we can just see it right to the fence row.
Yeah. Tank mixing EnerG Plus. Again, we would want 2/3 to half water or fertilizer into the tank, add the correct amount of energy, and then fill the balance and agitate and continue to agitate while you're mixing it in. With a plane, we'd want a minimum of 2 gallons per acre. You can go as high as the plane would allow, and with a ground rig, a minimum of 10 gallons. Now, since EnerG has the cup seaweed extract ferment in it, there can be some settling out. We'd recommend with your jugs, shake them well before using. And with the totes, I usually use an air wand. I actually did see at the ag show, somebody had a mixer that you can put down in your tote lid with a battery pack on it. So you know, something like that would give you very good agitation before using. So I've typically just used an air wand, a long one, and just stick it and just kind of bubble the bottom off the tank. This is very similar to Xylem, where we don't want it to freeze. There are sugars in this product as well, and the sugars will crystallize. The enzymes in the kelp wouldn't be a problem, but the sugars will crystallize if it freezes. Again, Matt, you can share on your brochure that they're available through your dealer portal as well as calling the office. Yes.
Yeah, and again, this is the kind of back pocket bifold. We also have, full page version of this as well now available.
Yeah, we didn't have this in the presentation, but if you look there on the screen, that chart, that's the percentage increase in nutrient availability. We've done this trial with multiple different research facilities, but the increase in nutrient availability is a huge talking point when we're looking with growers and how they're managing their nutrients and what gets into the plant. So take a look at that chart and look at it. One thing I'll just note, since he's got his cursor right there, for most of the researchers that were naysayers early in this product's life, if you look at the increase in ammonia availability of over so close to 30% increase in ammonia in the plant as well as in the stock versus the nitrate, which was substantially less. It takes nitrates to feed the organic matter, the humus in the soil, to then create ammonia. So the fact that there wasn't as much of an increase in nitrate actually really excited the researchers that we've done this with, that we actually are feeding microbes that are making that ammonia nitrogen more available to the plant throughout that growing season. So take a look at that and give a call if you have questions.
So then you're saying the early applications, as much as you can do spread out, are probably more important for that
Very much
to happen?
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
Because you're getting them on the soil.
Yep, that makes total sense. And that's why I've liked it. I think it's almost higher, or I see more response hitting the black dirt or hitting the dirt versus the plant. But we've had excellent response to the microbes on the plants too. But guys, don't think it's got to hit the plant. Their microbes are in the dirt. That's what you want to explode.
Yeah, and I like using a soil penetrant if you're going to put it on the soil, like a Agres C or any of those types of products if you can, because there can be some degradation if it's laid right on the surface and it's not worked in. So anytime that you're going to make a surface application of EnerG, if you can put I think you sell the
Yeah, but we're switching over to the other beer.
Okay.
Product. Which one yours that you have?
Yeah, I'll get it for you.
Okay.
But
Mick, I don't know if we did this with Xylem, I apologize, just EnerG and Xylem playing nice, mixing with
it's, yeah, I would not recommend putting them head to head on each other. Make sure you have plenty of solution in your tank before you put them in. I have had some people, and I don't really care what product it is, but if you put bifenthrin in an empty tank and then throw Xylem on it and then throw EnerG and then a zinc with it, and you don't have any solution with it, there can be some challenges that come from that. Make sure you have enough volume that the EnerG and Xylem and bifenthrin can get dispersed within that water, because you're looking at a very low pH product in EnerG and a neutral pH product with Xylem, and then bifenthrin is just kind of an animal anyway. So anytime you can don't ever put products head to head with each other without having enough solution for them to be agitated in.
More or less, don't dump them two in a cone at once and run them through separately with the solution, the starter, the water, the 28 or 32 that you have. A lot of times I tell guys, get a third to half tank of solution in your tank before you start adding the products you're putting in. Now, a lot of times you're really filling fast and you got to move, but that's why guys put 2 to 3 cones on their trailers. So they got them all filled up. They can let them go once instead of filling one cone and getting done in time.
Yeah, and I've even had guys, and I've even had our guys at the farm, well, they'll pull the tender trailer in and they'll just dump all the raw products in and then jump over to the starter tank and start loading in. That just is a recipe for problems.
Okay.
Now we're gonna get excited. I got only 20 minutes.
Yeah.
NutriFoliar. This thing, Mick talked about prebiotics and probiotics. This is a probiotic, a live micro. I get this from India. I've been playing for 7-8 years. I've never seen anything like it. I'm really excited about it. It could be a planned program or a rescue program is how I handle it. Basically what it is, on the next slide, start out. This is a nitrogen fixing microbe called an azotobacter that'll put approximately 50 pounds of nitrogen on your leaf, which gets into your plant. It gives you about 30 to 45 days. Basically what these microbes are doing is they land on the leaf, they go to the underside of the leaf to the stomata, and the stomata area is what opens and breathes the plant, brings in carbon dioxide and releases oxygen. But when it brings the carbon dioxide, 78% of our atmosphere is nitrogen. It converts it to a usable form and provides nitrogen from the air into the plant. That's what these bugs do. Now, the only thing these bugs live, why they die off, is because they run out of food. You must put 16 ounces of energy with it. So you feed the microbes, and we started doing that 4 years ago. We just exploded with the amount of nitrogen available versus when we didn't. It seemed like more bugs were alive. The plant was greener. It was basically because we were feeding it. We have contains a large range of beneficial bacteria. These microbes also supply different vitamin sources. And another thing is, I don't know what's in it, but according with my organic guys that I started with, we don't have the diseases on the leaves or in the stalk when we use this product. It's got some type of natural fungicide built into it that is very unique. Now, I wouldn't say not using the Xylem with it.
It's called EnerG.
It's called EnerG. That adds to it, right? But the azotobacters are the live microbes that do different things in the plant. One thing how I like using this is I like to wait until July, late July or August to use this. Here's the reason why. We are losing our nitrogen. It isn't up front, it's more on the back side. And what are the reasons why we're losing our nitrogen? Here's some examples. I hate using 28 and 32 when there's a lot of residue if we're laying it on top. Why? Because it gets encapsulated in those stalks and never comes available within that year, unless you got enough microbes to break those stalks down and get them available. Another thing, if you got excess moisture, what happens to nitrogen when we preload everything? It denitrifies. That's what, at least in low ground, you could lose your nitrogen too. Also, everybody has high to low, not everyone, but a lot of people have CEC soils that are all over the place within a piece of ground. If you have less than 10, usually they take that number times 10, and that's your holding capacity, the amount of nitrogen you can hold. For example, if you got a 10 CEC, it's going to hold 100 pounds of nitrogen up front. If you load up 200 pounds of it, you're going to have a tough time holding that throughout the whole season. And then in sandy soils, you can't hold that nitrogen as well. You usually run out of gas on the lighter soils late in the season and don't have enough. That's why we brought this product on. And where I've seen it in all the data we have done, we see huge responses when we either plan to put it on the 1st of August, or we're out scouting our fields, and by the time we got the second, third leaf from the bottom, we see nitrogen deficiency. If it's in that time frame or a little later, we know we're not going to make it, and we're going to lose yield due to nitrogen not being enough getting into the plant. The benefits that you get is this is organic certified. We also use tremendous amount of this on conventional normal acres. Again, I don't want to put it on until mid and late season. If you're an organic guy, it'd be a little different. If you have no manure, then we got a product that you can go in furrow with a nitrogen called NutriFoliar Plus that we use. But a lot of us that use nitrogen up front, I don't think it's beneficial. And then we come in at early tasseling with this and hit it again. And we've had excellent luck with that. It can be a plant nitrogen or rescue, like I said. Again, you got to put the EnerG Plus or the Ultra is the organic form to feed those microbes to keep them alive. And with the EnerG or Ultra, the approximate cost is $20 an acre or 50 cents a pound for nitrogen.
So we got a question here, Dan, what do you typically see for a time delay from application timing to seeing the end increase in the tissue samples? Can you talk about that?
Time delay from application time to seeing the end in the tissue, it's probably 1 week. What I see upon application, it takes about exactly 1 week and it greens up that plant. One thing I can say is it's not going to be as dark green as 2832 is, but this thing is going to be, guess CP color light. It's like 2/3 as dark, but you know it's working and you can see it. Another thing I noticed too, if I walk into the field, you will stop that lower leaves going up the plant and seeing that nitrogen deficiency. The biggest thing, if you do it as a rescue, we have to be walking our fields every week to figure out when that field is losing nitrogen or not having enough available for that plant. If it's already the 4th to 5th leaf up from the bottom down, guys, I think it's too late. We've lost too much yield. You might gain some more yield, but it's not going to be nearly as beneficial by waiting that late. We have to catch it earlier, if anything. Like really wet soils, really sandy soils, This is where this product, to me, is a win-win, for sure. The real black heavy dirt, I'm not saying it isn't, but it all depends on your nitrogen program and what you're doing. Those guys that are applying 2 to 3 times in season, this probably would not be a good program for him. But the guy that fully loads everything up early, he's got a lot of residue out there, he loses some of it, he's got a wet season, late season, you find out in August, these lower leaves are starting to see nitrogen deficiency. That's where this product works. 2 years ago in 22, I did an experiment to show the guys, we had 100 and some people show up at the field day. This picture, if you look on the right side of the flag, I personally put it on with an 806 and spreader. It's about 2 to 4 acres. We basically spread 200 pounds of AMS, which gave it only 42 pounds of nitrogen on bean ground. And then I put the NutriSoil in front. I did the NutriFoliar twice, and I yielded 238. On the left side is my normal fertilizer program, which is 300 pounds urea, 200 pounds of AMS, and which gives you 180 pounds of nitrogen, which yielded 249. It wasn't as important that the yields were there, but I found out they were. The biggest thing, how in the world could I yield 238 with only 42 pounds of nitrogen for the season? These live bugs work, period. The thing here, if you look here at the net return, it was right around $56 difference for inputs. And basically when you put these together, you see about the exact same net return at a 10 to 11 bushel difference. The following year, this year, I did another test just to prove to myself that these bugs work, which I've seen 5-6 years prior that they did. Go to the next page. Here is my son's organic corn. It looks probably yellower than it is. It's more or less the tassels. This crop is dark green. He had no manure on it. It was going to be organic. Because he tiles for a living and we're busy with our business, the corn got to be about 1 foot tall. I begged him to spray it because we really don't have time for organic, and I'm not against it. I think it's awesome because he'd done it 8 years prior, but he allowed me to spray it. And he said, "Oh, Dad, what are we going to use for nitrogen?" I said, "Well, since we got the NutriSoil on, we're going to do 2 sprayings of NutriFoliar. That's it. And we're going to see on this bean ground what we can yield." He said, "Well, what if we don't? We normally get close to 200 on our organic. If we don't, what are we going to do?" I said, "Dad, Derek, I'll guarantee you 200 bushel. If you're afraid, I'll make up the difference. But we need to do this study on at least 60 acres. And we did. And we yielded 228. Now, my question to you is, how could this look this good at this season, August 18th? And I tell you what, late season, it still was some of the greenest corn around this area. Now, we didn't put any sulfur on. I'm a huge sulfur guy. There was things on this crop I think we could have done better, got a lot more yield. All I cared about that I didn't see nitrogen deficiencies throughout the year, and I did not. And if any of you came to the field day, this plot was around all of our other plots and saw this field. And I talked about it at the field day in September. And it looked beautiful. Now, my other plot, which yielded an average of 255, had only 100 pounds of nitrogen total put on with 2 shots of NutriFoliar. And it yielded from 235 to 280 between all the different hybrids, an average 255. So my question back to you, to get those kind of yields, how could I do that on only 100 pounds of commercial fertilizer if these live microbes didn't work? Guys, for rescue or plan program, this thing is neat. Maybe the irrigators, some of you guys in Nebraska that are online, this might not be for you as much on the irrigated acres because you got 28 you can throw right in line. But think of this on your acres that you don't have irrigated. This would be huge. Or you guys out in South Dakota that don't want to put all the money up front and wait and see what kind of season we got and float this on at tasseling time or even later, depending on the number of pounds of N you put up front. This is way different than Pivot Bio.
Yeah.
I believe.
So we got, Dennis submitted a question, which Dan's heard before a couple times, compare this to Pivot Bio, sorry.
Pivot Bio is similar to our NutriFoliar. You put it up front, you want it to last all season. I can guarantee our NutriFoliar doesn't last all season. I don't think the Pivot Bio does either. But you preload all your other nitrogen with it, or a percentage of it. Guys, think on the other way, on the back end. That's when we're running out of gas. I think the next step, even if we use this product, what are all the other nutrients we don't have enough of? Or because of our base saturations, what else is tied up that we're not getting our total yields the last 2 months? I think we were thinking backwards here. Pivot Bio is up front. I'm on the backside. I'm on the side where I think there is more nitrogen deficiency than there's up front. It's a total different concept. I've been working 7 or 8 years with this thing. I'm totally convinced. In the right situation, this works. Okay, Ryan, you just said Pivot Bio runs out at Tassel. I agree totally. So what you should be doing Pivot Bio for works. You should be loading up, if they claim it's 40, 50 pounds of N, whatever, you should put 40 or 50 pounds less up front and have the Pivot Bio perform better for the cost that it is. That's my attitude on that part. Same as our program here, either it's a rescue or you put a planned program would be 40, 50 pounds less up front and let the NutriFoliar take over later to end the season. That's how I want to use this product. Again, how I do it, if it's one application, and you got to think a little backwards here, you wait all the way until August before you put it on. I want to get you out the backside to get to October 1 black layer that you don't run out of N. If you need 2 applications, that means you got 100 pounds. Then you start the first one July 1st, and you're going to need a second one because this isn't going to last long enough. Now we're going to do some studies. Maybe we can get this to last, but these microbes have to be fed. And I don't want to guarantee that until we get more tests done. And wouldn't this be awesome if we could put this on a knee tall and provide the rest of the nitrogen all season? I'm not convinced that it can, but if we can keep the microbes alive, there may be a chance in the next couple of years, this may do it. But this is very friendly. The biggest thing, look at the bottom, guys. If you're going to take any notes, take notes on this. You cannot have any chlorine in the water. You cannot have any antiseptic like cleaner that you clean the sprayer tank out or any copper. It kills the azotobacters, the live microbes. So if your water is chlorinated, we've got to get a treatment to get the chlorine out for sure. And then we will send you litmus tests to make sure you test it, that there's no chlorine in the water after you treat it. Because you will kill those bugs. Any other chemicals, fungicides, do not kill. Will not.
So Dennis wants to know if it can be applied in subsurface irrigation.
Yes, but through the irrigator, subsurface irrigation, which is above, I don't think I want to run it through the irrigator, and here's why. We can try it. I haven't had any data on that. It's only 8.8 ounces of product. Are we going to get enough microbes on the plant to grow diluting it that far? That's only my nervousness. I can say it. Now, one thing I can tell you, when we put on 8 to 20 gallons of water, whatever you want to put on, you can put it on. Water will not wash these off. We've had 2-3 inches rain within days after I put it on, even within hours after I put it on, they do not wash off. So that's one positive thing on that part.
So that,
did I answer that, you think?
yeah, well, that Nathan just asked,
Yep.
do they stay on the plant? Do they stay on the leaf or move into the plant? And what conditions would inhibit performance outside of those chemicals?
Okay.
for those 3 products that's talking.
Number one, they move into the leaf. I can't tell you if they are on the surface or go inside the plant. It's one or the other. I'll verify that. But I haven't seen anything inhibit it except for one thing, chlorinated water. We've had 2 times already, guys have used chlorinated water, and I can tell right away, doesn't green up, it's not working. That's the biggest thing you got to pay attention to is a chlorinated water. Darren said subsurface
If they can't pull.
is below ground. That's a no. Okay,
Yeah, if they.
sorry, I'm not an irrigator guy.
If they can't pull the oxygen out of the air.
Right, right. They gotta go on the leaves. This is not a product to go in the ground like Pivot Bio. Our Neutral Soil Plus is like Pivot Bio different, used for in the soil. I don't believe if you're loading nitrogen up early, unless you're an organic guy, you really need the early microbes in the soil. I don't. But if you put no nitrogen on, you got to find a source like organic guys, then you need it. But if guys apply manure, they usually have that nitrogen available early, but they run out of gas later. Corn and corn's another one, big results on it. I got a new video that should be out within a week that shows, honestly, I planted a field, 41,000 population. I put NutriFoliar, Xylem Plus, and EnerG on it. You should see that video. Unbelievable what I yielded, and that corn stood like a tree when we put it on, and I had no running out of nitrogen whatsoever. And I came back with NutriFoliar late. I've never had corn and corn like that in my life. And I just know the whole program I put together, it wasn't just the NutriFoliar, but it was everything that I did that made it work.
So clarifying on Dennis's question, can NutriSoil be put on through the subsurface? Yes, because that's what's right.
Yes, drip tape. Okay. I'm worried about the dilution effect of how much water is put with it to get enough microbes there. I don't, Dennis, yes, question is NutriSoil can be put on through sub-irrigation drip tape. I would much rather you put it on in furrow with the planter at 3 to 5 gallons of water or starter. I haven't done it. I don't want to say. We need some data before I say that. Any comments here, Mick? Do you think? I'm nervous on the volume of water of dilution. I am, guys.
Are you worried about running off?
No, I'm worried about getting equally distributed, throughout the area when it's put on real heavy. Okay. Basically, storage of this product, you've got to keep it between 45 to 75. These microbes will live 3 years. Don't worry, they're not going to die off. But if you get in a real cold environment, I don't want, or I especially don't want it sitting out in the sunlight. If you keep it in your house, they're coming 5 years, 10 years, or excuse me, a heated shop. That's all I care about on that part of it. It works, guys. They're hard to kill off unless you got those 3 things are the only things that kill them off. We have not had very few problems except chlorine really killing any of these bugs. And I have a lot of farmers that have used it, especially organic. But we've got a lot of non-organic farmers moving to this or looking to it as a rescue or a planned program. Again, we got a new brochure on it too. What's that?
Go ahead.
We've got a new brochure that is a full 8x11 plus the small one that goes over it. Again, you'll see in there the tissue samples, which is brochure. We took everything up, even in the trace minerals. That's because of the energy mixed with it, or the ultra on the organic side. Guys, this works. It simply works. It's awesome for, using it the right way.
So we had question about NutriSoil being OMRI approved.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
And then,
It is.
another one, so EnerG Plus is not reapproved, but we have a reapproved
Ultra.
cousin of that called Ultra. So for organic purposes, we have a product that has the same efficacy as EnerG Plus. And then Darren.
Yeah, go ahead, talk about Renew, Nick.
Okay, yeah, so Renew is a product that contains additional nutrients over what we would have with Xylem Plus. So it has added potassium, predominantly added potassium and phosphorus in it. To really drive that plant, we're looking at it as more of a mid-season, late season application on both corn and soybeans. But with the 77 ounce application rate, it will give you your 24 ounces of Xylem within that Renew product. So we did some testing with it last year. We'll do some more testing with it this year. Really like what we're seeing, increased plant health and doing some nutritional management with that product in conjunction with being able to be a registered fungicide as well.
We probably don't talk about it enough. We just don't want to confuse people. 2 years ago, I brought it in for 3 guys. We put it all on with the airplane. It was their best fields. Even one was corn and corn versus corn and bean, which is unbelievable. So I brought a semi-load in 2023. Everyone that talked to me liked it better than Xylem. So it's telling us this extra nutrients we put on late is working, at least in these fields. I use it in my fields, the Renew instead of Xylem Plus. I think it's huge. I think that P&K food grade at 2 pounds each is pretty big. In your mind, just think it's going to cost the farmer $7-8 more per acre for the P&K. That's what it's going to cost them for the 77 ounces versus 24 ounces of Xylem. And again, it's got 24 ounces Xylem with 2 pounds of P, 2 pounds of K, food grade. So we don't talk about it enough because we don't want to confuse you guys. I'm telling you, if you're going to put it on a tasseling or brown silk, it's an awesome product. It's awesome. Here's the thing I did. I mentioned that one field of corn and corn. All 3 of these products fit like a glove, guys. Now the NutriFoliar we don't like on till the 1st of August, if it's one application to go out the late side. If you got Xylem Plus done on in-furrow or done at your post-emergence, either or, at least you got it up early. I am not at all scared to wait for the Xylem till August to put on. You can put all 3 of these products together in early August. Now, if you don't have your first application up front, Fusarium and stock rot's going to come in. Now I would say Xylem needs to be put on earlier, like an early tassel, because no early application of 24 ounces been put on. But these products fit like a glove. Add more nitrogen, add more disease control, add more nutrient availability. That's what these 3 products do when used together. But I think it's got to be more of a planned program if you're going to wait that late to use your Xylem Plus. Mick, you got any comments?
Yeah,
Disagreements or
the the benefits of them all together in a crop production system is, your EnerG Plus is going to increase nutrient availability. It's going to help with some disease control. But that late application with EnerG with NutriFoliar is going to allow NutriFoliar to reach its maximum potential in fixing nitrogen, because there's a readily available food source there that's feeding it to get it established and start that fixing process in the plant. So those are just bookends to each other. Xylem Plus as well. You could have EnerG Plus and be able to increase nutrient availability in the soil, and NutriFoliar and increase the foliage. But if you can't get water into the plant, or you can't draw essential nutrients that NutriFoliars are providing into the plant, then you're going to have challenges. So keeping the stalk clean so we can get that late season water and nutrition into the plant, will allow NutriFoliar to work its best because we'll be able to get that potassium and nutrients and water predominantly to come up into the plant to allow NutriFoliar to do what it does. And if you create nutrient availability with energy in the soil and you can't get it into the plant, then that's for nothing as well. So Xylem Plus helps stalk and stems stay healthy and clean so that we can move nutrients through the plant and move sugars down to the roots early in that vegetative stage. So they all work very, very well together to create a program of, as what Dan said, plant health, soil health, disease suppression, as well as yield and return on investment, which is what pays bills.
Think of something else to a nitrogen. If you got it in the soil, you need water to bring it up into the plant, correct? Think of for under stress. You're not going to get that nitrogen. Think of NutriFoliar being on the leaves and the bugs get it in even under stress. You will see more nitrogen in that plant under stress conditions with getting nitrogen in that plant because of less water. That is a big benefit, I would say, on the non-irrigated corn in Nebraska. And we need to do those studies to see. But I tell you what, in stress conditions, unless it's extreme stress, you are going to have healthier crops.
So we have Darren unmuted. We had a question, Darren. You ventured some info about standability and the cost you saved, and then we had a question to see what your savings were in terms of how this worked on your sunflowers last year. So go ahead.
Well, on our sunflowers, you guys can hear me, correct?
Yep.
So on our sunflowers last year, where we didn't put the second shot on, we were combining 12.29 acres per hour. Where we had it on and our sunflower stood really, really well, we were 17.5 acres per hour. So it was 5.2 or 5.3 acres per hour difference in harvestability. And when you do the math on what these combines cost, it was close to $9.75 an acre difference in operating costs alone.
And the yields were 500 pounds greater, correct?
Yeah, yep. So for the 20 some dollars we spent, we got 180 back just on yield.
Yep. Sunflowers, guys, I'm not a lot of it. Darren, you guys got it out there. We're seeing some huge things with sunflowers. Put it out in Dakotas in that area. So for some of you guys that have sunflowers, I'd be looking at it for sure.
So we got another question here from Tim. What about a single app of Xylem, NutriFoliar, and EnerG earlier, V8 to V10 to pre-tassel sometime to get through corn? Is there going to be a benefit there?
So you're basically wanting to be a later application in that V10 to V8 than what we would recommend, and earlier than what we would generally make our application as well. Your NutriFoliar would also be earlier also than what Dan would recommend. So I would not encourage that regime. I would do your Xylem and EnerG earlier and then come back with that combination of the three at a later time frame as Dan is shared.
You're right, Nick. I agree. And I like your honesty. The NutriFoliar, I'm nervous going that early. It doesn't run out of gas later. I think that program would work good, Tim, by putting the application at V8 to 10 with the NutriFoliar. If later in August, we had another application of EnerG or Ultra just to keep those microbes alive. We need to test it, Tim, to really know. I don't want to give you an answer. I really don't know that, but I just love the NutriFoliar later. Or you're out scouting the field. I had a guy last year, the 20th of July, called me, got a problem, I'm third leaf up, I'm burning up. What do? Get the NutriFoliar. We stopped it. He put it on 800 acres. The only negativity out in South Dakota, you got absolutely no rain. And he was the lightest green corn in the area. When he harvested, he saw no additional yield because he got hardly no rain in addition. But he said that corn was the darkest green corn when he harvested and stood exceptionally well versus the neighbor. And he did not have any Xylem on that product. He just had NutriFoliar. So as indication there, the nitrogen was there and available. He just got no weather conditions, no rain to add a lot of yield. But he said, no question, I could see the NutriFoliar worked.
Couple more questions. Appreciate everybody staying on here. These are good questions. Compare from Nathan, compare NutriFoliar to Nutricia N.
Can you get him up and let him talk? He has to explain to me the Nutricia N. I want to make sure I understand.
That's our nitrogen fixing product from Fertiva.
Very similar to our NutriFoliar, would you say?
In their recommendation of it, yeah.
So then I would say, Nathan, what we got to do is compare. We got to compare and do side by sides in the same hybrid and see what the difference is and look at that data. I really don't know. I know it's not the same as ours, but it could be similar. Yes, I'm just unaware of that product, but we should compare just to see what works better.
Yeah, I mean, we have tried it on the farm on both corn and soybeans. And you know, maybe there's something that we're doing wrong. But you know, what it is our Pioneer dealer will come and drop off 3 bags and say, spray it on your beans, let us know what you see. You know, so there's not a lot there on leadership for us on that side of things, but I've tried it for 3 years on beans at that pod fill time frame is what they recommended to bloom to pod fill. So I'd say R1 or 2, and on corn at that V10, V11, and we haven't seen anything on it on our farm, but I'm not saying that we were using it right, or that it wouldn't for somebody else.
And it may not be working because it's similar to ours, timing again.
Yeah,
I think it should be done later. And I've done a lot of testing with our product. Oh my God, all over. Again, I'll tell you guys, the biggest bang is later than earlier by far.
So
and we got plenty of nitrogen also. I mean, I'm not pulling back.
So that's different too. If you got plenty of nitrogen, you won't see any bang out of either one, even our NutriFoliar. If you're putting on way extra nitrogen or think you got plenty and you're putting NutriFoliar on, no, you got to cut back or it's a rescue. That it's a net return, guys. If we don't make you money, I don't want you using these products. It's all about money in the end. We've got to gain you either through a better yield or you save the money, not put as much money in the crop and get the yield in the end. It's net return.
So on that topic of later application, Dennis is wondering if NutriFoliar can go through the drone.
We are huge on the drones, guys. We see more and more farmers buying drones, and the answer is yes. We see it with a plane, definitely the drone should work. And the drone's going to get into the corners a little bit better, etc. If guys are going to do more foliar spraying or doing more stuff with that fungicide time and later, you know, I've done the financials. Any farmer 12 to 1,500 acres could own their own drone. Now, some of you guys do spraying out there. I don't want to take over your business by that, but some of you farmers out there, you know, are interested in this. I think the drones are going to get better and better, but I think they're the future to a certain extent too. You know, lest they get too expensive. But we have to do more things later season to get our yields up. I'm convinced of that. Some areas not, some areas more. Depends on all your base saturation. What is tied up into our soils and what's unavailable. Another question, have you done anything with NutriFoliar and soybeans? Yes, I got a dealer in Boynton Hall, Iowa area, got a huge boost of using NutriFoliar, excuse me, wrong product. No, I do not. That is using Renew on soybeans right at early flower. He had a huge benefit, but not on NutriFoliar. Sorry, Chris, I was thinking of the wrong product. I do not have anything, and we need to do the testing and mix right. If the timing's right on the soybeans, Chris, I would test it right at early pod. Would you, Mick?
Yeah.
Won't that tell you?
Yep.
Okay, I wanna make sure I'm thinking right. Early pod is when I would go in and do some testing with it and see if it would add some yield. I got mixed feelings if it will. I really do. I don't know how to answer that, to be honest with you.
Well, I think where you might see a response on soybeans is if you have a situation where your disease is so strong in the root that you're not fixing nitrogen through the nodules. So, you know, if you have something attacking the nodulation in the plant, then you're going to have a very hard time having enough nitrogen to finish the plant.
That's a good point. So maybe then check your nodulation by pulling the roots up.
Yeah.
If you think it's a lot less than normal, try it. If your nodulation is really great, probably not the return. That's an excellent point. I like that. So we got Mick here, the man.
All good questions. One last thing before we see if there's any more questions or wrap this up is more for you folks on there. We have the dealer portal. If you don't have access to that, all this info and then some will be on there. GroupMe is kind of the app we use to keep in touch with all you, whether we submit, you know, let you know about this meeting or you want to show us something you got, photos, videos, etc. We'll get you set up on that as well. Just reach out to someone here in the office. So after that little bit of housekeeping, I think we can stop sharing and actually show our faces again. And just see if there's any more questions. Otherwise, you know, we appreciate everybody being on here. We had another great turnout. Reach out to your AP contact, reach out to us if you have any more questions. Dan, make anything to add before we?
Just appreciate all you guys are doing and anything you need to support your sales process or customer conversations. Get a hold and we'll do our best to support that.
Yep.
And
I appreciate taking the time. We're having huge turnouts. Our third one, once every month. It's big what's showing up and we're just very thankful. And again, we want to make you more money, period. That's what this is about.
looks like we got a late entry. Oh, go ahead. So Paul wants us to mention the products being used in greenhouses and the hydroponic space.
Well, all of them. Well, I don't know about NutriFoliar, but the Xylem and EnerG are all used in those spaces predominantly. For those few, especially in the tomato market and strawberries and you know, a lot of those nursery greenhouses and the tomatoes especially, they have a disease very similar to Goss's wilt. And if that gets into a tomato greenhouse, it'll annihilate it within 48 hours. So products like Xylem Plus are very, very, very important in that disease suppression and control.
Yep.
That's where it came from. That's where we got it, the vegetable world, and we're very thankful, you know, for what it does. It's amazing, guys. Upon getting a wet season, oh my God, guys, you're going to see a difference. Big, big difference.
You know, cucumbers lay on the ground, tomatoes are, you know, a lot of times you'll have your watermelon and your other melons will lay on the ground and they're more susceptible to those diseases. So keeping the plant inoculated with Xylem is going to support a healthier and more vibrant plant.
Okay, well, we appreciate everyone's time this morning and hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, guys.